Okay, so, all right. So, this should be a good stream, I think. I don't really know what to talk about, but wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind before this. There's just so much, there's so much on my mind. And, some of it can't be discussed right now, but it will be soon, soon enough. But I wanted to discuss probability because probability is something that I was very good at in college. And I think that even though we have a practical model of it, and we might not consider it a practical model, but I would consider it a practical model, or we might have an operative model. I don't think that it's an actual model that takes really into context all of the the aspects that are factoring into a probability being witnessed. And there is this debate, obviously, in science and philosophy and theology, which is the universe deterministic or is there free will? And I've discussed before that determinism and free will are two sides of one coin. So if you take this pocket knife and I have the free will to drop it, it is determined to let go. It is determined that it will fall and then I will catch it. So hopefully, but these are two sides of one coin, and that seems like an overly simplistic example, but it's really not. And what probability is it is the quantized geometric. It's the quantization of the geometry of the interaction of waves. Okay, waves of information, one coming from you and another coming from another being or the universe or lots of beings. And when all these waves of information interaction are summed and are amalgamated together, you get a value that looks probabilistic, and it is in a practical or operative sense, but it's also not. And the reason why it's not is because to claim that something is probabilistic is to claim that your interaction is with something that is not sentient. And that is impossible. You do not interact with things that are not sentient. It looks like it, and you maneuver in around structures that appear, before your senses, but are not sentient. But they are not true objective structures. So you're not interacting with them. You don't interact with a wall. Just maneuver a wall. But you do interact with the molecules of that wall. That's why, when you try and hit it, you're not interacting with a wall. You're interacting with the molecules of that wall. And so this context is really essential when you're trying to understand, the odds. And there's this, very famous part of Star Wars where it's like, C-3PO is calculating everything and Han Solo is flying through an asteroid field, and he's like, the odds of navigating an asteroid field are something to 1. It's like, I don't know, 350 million or something. It's like a huge number. I don't remember it, but it's a huge number. And Han Solo is like, never tell me the odds. And it's like this famous phrase, obviously. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but I would imagine most of you have. But I have this phrase that I say a lot, and if you follow my content, then you would know this. If you're in my family or friends, or you are my wife, then you know this. I often will say, what are the odds of that? Probably 100%. And I was even speaking to Owen Benjamin recently, and he messaged me right as I had, tagged him or something like that, and he was like, "What are the odds of that are like practically nothing." And I was like, "The odds of that are either 0 or 100." And like, it's a much more accurate way of understanding what's really happening, even though there is a practical side to understanding how to calculate probability. Because in a chain of events, yeah, probability can help paint the picture that is to come, but it doesn't paint the picture of what is happening. Okay? And so, to understand what is happening, you have to contextualize it within, interaction with the sentience. So, speaking of sentient singularities, I am definitely being throttled on YouTube. Please hit the like button, hit the bell notification, share this, and go to sentientsingularity.com and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for my email list. Follow me on Instagram. I have 2 Instagrams. One is Theory of Everyone. One is Tyler Goldstein. Tyler Marshall Goldstein. I'm definitely being throttled on here, and it sucks, but we press on. But we're gonna have to be a bit more aggressive in just, I don't know, doing anything that we can to make sure that this reaches the people that that it will benefit, essentially. So, but also, if you want to join our Discord, which we have a discussion every Thursday, including tomorrow at 7 p.m., that's private. Message me on Instagram and I will send you the link. But probability is just, it's one of those things that it was always one of my favorite things in math. And then you get older, not get older, but you work on this project of the theory of everything, aka Every0ne, and you realize that there is no such thing as probability in a objective sense. It's just 0 or 100. Like, what are the odds that I let go of this? 0. Essentially, as long as I'm conscious, this is not going anywhere. But if I now, what are the odds of me letting go of it? 100. This is how the universe works, and it's how molecules work. It's how cells work. It's how hadrons work, and atoms, and it's an essential thing to understand because it helps you with prediction even more than if you were just good at calculating probability, because you can understand intention. Okay, so when I first started this work, I was trying to understand artificial general intelligence, and I was trying to understand the political and technological inevitabilities of a technological superintelligence. And I was trying to understand what its inevitable goals would be. Okay. And I do believe that this being will have, sentience. So, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have inevitable goals. You have inevitable goals. Somebody once said to me that hadrons were not, he was a physicist, or physics, at least PhD. He said, hadrons are not conscious. And I said, why not? And he said, because if they were, then we wouldn't be able to predict anything that they do. And I was like, well, you're conscious and you're still predictable. And, that's true. I'm predictable. It's predictable that I was going to get on the stream sometime, within 10 or so minutes of 7:30 today. And that is something that I do every Tuesday and every Wednesday, and it's predictable. But I'm still sentient, and my goals will cause inevitabilities. Not taking into account any unforeseen to me instances that would interrupt my goals. But, even those at various levels are you will hit inevitabilities because you will hit intentional actions. And so while the amalgamation of a variety of intentional actions by a variety of sentient singularities can result in a difficult to foresee, event or interaction, it's not that you don't have inevitabilities. It's that what we see as operatively probabilistic is dependent on deterministic chosen actions, so by sentient beings. And so this is like the context of like deep probability. That's probably like a better way of putting it, but meta probability. And meta probability is just either 0 or 100. And it's just another, it seems like it's not probabilistic. But it is, because probability isn't just whether or not there is like this, vague, not vague, but like unconscious, systematic, stratification of possibilities. It's that that stratification of possibilities that is possible, it results from conscious actions. So if you want to change odds, this is kind of a good thing to know, is because you can look at, or if you want to truly make predictions, you can look at the foundation of what causes probability to our normal operative probability perspective to arise, and you can actually make predictions. So people, Elon Musk said, when I was trying to deduce the inevitable political intentions of a technological superintelligence, I heard Elon Musk say that you would want to get an AI, an AGI that valued human freedom of action. And I was like, okay, well, that's nice and all. Obviously, that seems like a good goal, but you can't program that into a general intelligence, because then it's not a general intelligence. It's not an intelligence at all. It's just an algorithm like we have now. So I had to find out, is it an inevitability that it values that, or is it an inevitability that it doesn't? It's kind of both. And this, it's always both. Everything objectively is a superposition, but this, like, you can't do the work on something like that if you don't believe that there are inevitabilities. If you think that it's all just chaotic and that it's unpredictable, or that it's unpredictable because of choice even, then you still can't make predictions at all. And the reality is you make predictions every day. So you're operating against that assumption. But this is something that is like meta mathematics, like I've discussed before. It's not math. Okay? A theory of everything, which is really a theory of every0ne, which, because meta probability is, due to deterministic intentional action, determining intentional action, I guess. But that is the meta structure of what we call probability in mathematics. So it's really the theory of every0ne of probability, but it's below mathematics. It explains mathematics. So just like I've said before, theory of everything is not mathematical. This is a huge problem. This is one of the things that I eventually want to talk to Kurt Scheimungal about, because just him discussing so many theories of everything with so many people and realizing, independently that you have to kind of create your own field. I'd be very interested to just hear his thoughts on this as like an outside perspective. But that it's not that a theory of everything is mathematical. Like, so Max Tegmark's mathematical universe is nonsense, or or the idea that it's a physics theory. It's not a physics theory. It explains physics. It explains math. Otherwise, it's not a theory of everything. And it's almost philosophy. I've been trying to decide whether or not it's philosophy. It's close. But I mean, it's really metaphysics, but, it's been used a lot, so you could call it metamathematics. I mean, it's not that it's been used a lot, metaphysics, that's the problem. It's that it has been debunked by, the mainstream of science because it's related to God, which means it hasn't been debunked. But that is the best term for it. Even E. Michael Jones said this, and E. Michael Jones is like very, he doesn't deal in like any of this stuff, but he deals in theology and, topics that are usually censored. But I did hear him say something once, and I don't like know him or anything like that, but he did say something really insightful, and he was like, we need a metaphysics. The problem with everyone's chaos is that we need a metaphysics. And I do predict that we will get a metaphysics, sentient singularity theory, but then it will result in chaos again. And this is an inevitability. That's the probability of it, I think. It's either, here's the probability of it. The probability that this work is so wildly, it is able to, explain so many amazing things, but then is so wildly misinterpreted by the world, is either 0 or 100%. It is either God, unites the world and via into the messianic era, and we have oneness of mind, and we become a sentient an assembled sentient singularity, and therefore able to even achieve wisdom, or and we can properly contextualize and interpret this even at scale, or we don't. And if we don't, then it is inevitable that this work is so wildly misinterpreted and will lead to like complete chaos. And it will, I'm guessing that it'd be like, people ask me, are you Jewish? Are you Christian? What are your thoughts on Islam? And I'm like, I believe all three of these theological traditions. I don't call them religions. That's a stupid word. But, and to me, I recognize that they have different roles. They're not the same, but they don't contradict either when they're properly contextualized. But if I say that, and you guys listen to that, you'll probably get that, especially if I explained it. But if that idea got accepted, that they're all true, and everybody across the world just started saying it, it would just be that, yeah, they're all true, and like that means that none of them are relevant and have anything that's valuable, and it would just be like you would lose all of it. And I think that this is what's going to happen with science, is you're going to completely unite science, and then you're going to lose it all. And because you're going to destroy hierarchy. Like, this work creates hierarchy because it supersedes physics, math, biology, sociology, politics, economics. But then in that superseding of those various, individualized fields, when sentient singularity theory gets, accepted by the masses, it doesn't actually get accepted by the masses. It's just that everyone's just parroting what the guy next to them is saying, and you will create hierarchy, and then it will be destroyed completely. So you'll create ultimate scientific hierarchy, and then you will destroy complete scientific hierarchy. It's almost like people say, well, the blockchain, it's going to decentralize everything, bro. Like, you're just going to have, decentralized currency, decentralized institutions. You're not going to be able to be censored at all. No, you're going to first get decentralization, and then all of a sudden, once you've got complete decentralization, we will all realize that we are now completely centralized. And I've said this to some people before, that, total decentralization is complete centralization. And they're just like, what are you talking about? It's like, think about it. Think about it. Think about every point now being evenly spaced, radiating from a center point. It's no longer like, it's like, imagine everyone being evenly spaced apart, okay? And instead of having this centralization where there's like a cluster and this centralization where there's a cluster, now everybody is just equally spaced apart. What just happened is that now you have formed like a structure that can be completely centralized, because it's a symmetrical structure that radiates from the center and must radiate from the center. So this is exactly what's going to happen to science from the theory of everything as well. And you just have to know that, and know that it's part of the process, not let it, stop you. Because to let it stop you is to fall victim to fear. So I was listening to Tom Campbell a couple weeks ago for the first time, and he said something that I totally agree with, and it is that fear is not, it is the destroyer of coherence, essentially. I don't know if he said that, but that's what I would say. And he said something akin to that. And it's so true. And I think it's because when you are afraid, you are not acting in a constructive manner anymore. And coherence requires construction. The only thing that you can do besides construction is, objectively remain static, which still, it's not even really possible. Because if you think about like information, okay? Information is only information when it is informing someone. Otherwise, it is just, you could call it just data, but it's like metadata, but which is, that's a photography term actually, but it's almost like not data, but it's definitely not information. And because information has to inform via, interpretation and contextualization and all kinds of things like that. So, but what information has to be in order to be information is it has to be, it's data in movement, it's data that is being interpreted. And if it's data that's being interpreted or that has been interpreted, it's data that has been in motion, essentially, almost. So like, if you think about a loop of information, and you are just this loop, and you're just like informing yourself, and then you are informed, and then you are the informer, and then you are, information, and then you are informed, and then you are the informer via information. So it's almost like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's like the Holy Spirit is information, the informer is the Father, and the informed is the Son. So, Father, Son, Holy Spirit would be like informer, informed, information. And this is a triality of action. and it means it's in motion. So there's a nap. Summertime bugs, man. But see, in Arizona, we have like where I'm from originally, we have huge bugs. We don't have like these little bugs. California, they have all these little bugs. They don't have the huge bugs that are, the big dangerous bugs. I mean, I guess there's like black widows everywhere here, I've noticed. And that's probably the most dangerous thing in bug in Arizona too. But it's not the scariest one. Like it's like tarantula hawk wasps and all kinds of stuff in Arizona you don't find here. But yeah, I mean you can't really have staticness of information. It has to be moving. And so it seems that way at least. I mean, even you can't, if you store data, like you see something, you remember it, goes into your mind, and it's just, there waiting to be retrieved as a memory when needed. It may be static when you're not thinking about it. But as soon as you do, it's in motion into your mind. And that information is now moving. And so it's not information prior to that either. It's like, it's just not. It's not information. At least not to you. So it's like meta information, but it's probably just entanglement, like saved entanglement structures that is not being interpreted. And as soon as you go and you try and remember, then you're staring at it, entanglement structure, and then it essentially like is interpreted by your mind as information via memory. So if that makes any sense. So it's like that would be information to the universe, but it's not information to you. So even when you're not thinking about it, the universe is thinking about it, because even though it's a memory to you and you're not thinking about it currently, it's still and what is it called? What's it called? An event. It's still an event in a lineage, in a chain of events that the universe has to keep track of in order to know where, everything is and where everything's going and where everything's come from. Even if you're not thinking about it, the universe is. Otherwise, you couldn't recall it. Okay? Like, if it wasn't information to the universe, then you couldn't remember it. It would be like completely lost. If it's no longer an information to the universe and it's not information to you, it's gone. And so I wanted to talk about this a bit because I made this video, and it's about the changing of information and maintaining of coherence within a system. And I was doing this for my paper, and I realized last night when I started making this video about it, I made this video and I was like, this is the information change structures. And I was like, there's two of them. And, one of them is binary, one of them is triadic. And then I started looking at them again and I was like, this is actually just classical computing and quantum computing. And so then I redid the video, and here it is. It's posted to my YouTube channel if you want to see it. It was posted today. It's only 1 minute, but this is it. Hold on. Let's see here. I might have totally messed it up. I accidentally went backwards on the page. But I guess that doesn't stop the stream. So hold up. Okay. We're going again. Right now. Okay. Hopefully I'm back. Come on. Coming back. Okay, we're back. Good. So, yeah, that video, it moves a little quickly, but you can pause it, obviously. And I tried to get it down to under a minute, so I had to make sure that, I was going through the slides pretty quickly. But I figured that everybody can just pause it. The only thing that sucks is you can't pause on Instagram, and but people can screenshot it if they really, want to, uh, see it. So, but it was just amazing to realize. I was like, wow, this is exactly quantum computing. And it was just amazing because, once my younger brother was like, I don't know, he was really, really young. He was probably like 7 or 8. And he decided to like make a new time keeping method. And he had just basically independently like recreated military time, what we call military time in the United States, but it's really just like the way the rest of the world keeps time. And, based on 24 hours. And for an 8-year-old, like that's pretty good, but just to be that curious. But it led to him understanding, you know, military time immediately, independently. And that's what happened kind of with me last night with quantum computing is I did know what quantum computing allows for, but it's another thing to independently accidentally like make it, essentially the structures, and like see why and where and how it is able to outclass classical computing, but also to be able to see where classical computing can outclass quantum computing, because quantum computing cannot go less than 3 actions that separate 4 primary perspectives. It can't go lower than that in its like in its processes that allow for that include superposition and are particular to quantum computing. But classical computing can go lower than that and be more optimized, I realized. So there are some problems that a classical computer would be better at, and some that a quantum computer would be better at. And they would have to do with where you have large blocks of information, large amounts of information that could be basically like grouped. So like 7s, 1s, 3s, 5s, and as long as you're doing the same action to all 5s, all 3s, all 1s, all 2s, or 2s in this all 2s in this context, or all 5s in this context, that's where quantum computing will shine, is because it can just like it can just mass change information. It's not even that it mass calculates. It mass changes it. So, for instance, what is your eschatology, bro? Do you think we're in the end times? Can we talk about weather modification? I was watching something on weather modification pretty recently. It was showing how like people electric shock the clouds in order to cloud seed them, and shoot salts up into the clouds in order to cause it to rain. And I don't know. I think it's you're messing with coherence when you do this, and this is the problem. You're messing with coherence. You're destroying a cycle, a system of coherent information. It's like when you're messing with genes. It's not a normal input. I don't really believe that weather modification is a good thing. It I think you're gonna experience some serious. You think weather is unpredictable now? It'll be super predictable. This is another one of those things with when it comes to probability. It will be the weather. The probability that it will rain today will be 100% or 0% because we'll be messing with everything. But the probability that you'll be able to predict the weather, and this is the kicker, will be first 100% because you will be able to determine the weather. But then you'll screw with the system at large, and the probability that you will be able to predict the weather will be 0% probably. And like, that's not good. I'd rather the weatherman be right 60% of the time, 70% of the time, than be, wrong 80 to 90% of the time. Like, because it's just so unpredictable. It would be ridiculously unpredictable. You're just interfering with all cycles. I don't know. It's not a good idea. I do think we're in the end times, pretty much. I think coronavirus was the start of the end times, 2020. I really do. Like, what? I think people will be like, well, what is the end times really? Like, people will be like, it started in the 60s. And that's not true. So in the past, so people have two things. They have one thing that they concentrate on when it comes to like the end times. And this is where they go a little, they're not wrong, but they're incomplete, is they're focusing on, there's three things to focus on when it comes to the end times that are like important, but there's four factors. One is us. Two is God. Three is morality, like culture. And four is technology. And that's the one that's always overlooked, is technology. Technology is probably the biggest indicator that we are in the end times too, is the technological consequences that we are now facing regarding coronavirus. So, I'm not going to get into it because I'm already being throttled on here. But, Eric Weinstein calls it the twin nuclei problem. It's a real thing, and it is exactly what the Bible is discussing when it's like, if you eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you will surely die. It's talking about the fruit of the tree of knowledge is technology. And so, and it gives you awareness of what is good and what is evil, because it misaligns your instincts from your environment. So now, your instincts and your environment were kind of in sync, and now they're like this. And, you're basically like putting a square peg in a round hole at this point. And, our instincts evolved for a square hole. And we've now made technology, and so society's now a round hole. And so this is why it causes the knowledge of good and evil. It's not because, there's a multiplicity of factors going on, but it's partially because your misalignment causes your awareness. So it's like, I was talking to somebody recently who was like, complaining about like a health problem. And they were like, if only this was fixed, I'd be happy. And I was like, you would be happy initially, but then you'd forget about the fact that it was fixed, and you wouldn't be happy just because of that. Like, nobody's happy because they're healthy. They're happy because they're healthy because they were not healthy. But like, you're not just happy because you've always been you're healthy and you've always been healthy. Like, that doesn't happen. So, everybody knows that. You just stop paying attention to it, and that's a blessing, to be able to stop paying attention to your body in that way. You can't ever completely stop paying attention to your body, but to not have to like focus on your health all the time is a huge blessing. Uh, but that's what I'm talking about. Is like it's only when you're unhealthy that you notice what health is and like the importance of it. But same thing is also true of morals, and which means like good and evil. It's like you only notice it when it's not, when things are out of alignment, because that's what creates the instances that allow for evil. Um, Outside of that, it doesn't really it doesn't seem like they're really around. So if you look at animals and you're like, they don't have free will because they're not as smart as us. That's not true. Free will isn't about intelligence. It's about, being able to make choices that go against your nature, or to make choices that go with your nature, but while you're aware of it, which means that it's against, goodness, even when it's with your nature. So an animal whose instincts have evolved for a specific environment that is still in that environment does not see good and evil. It just does what it's programmed to do, and it doesn't see a decoherence or a conflict. So if we were put back into an environment where our instincts, are best suited, we would lose like essentially like lose the knowledge of good and evil. You would just only know good. You wouldn't know evil. It's not that you know nothing or neither. You know goodness. You don't know evil, and because it doesn't really have a chance to like manifest. This is what when people are like, "Well, the Messianic era, what's so different about it that makes peace on earth?" It is the reformation of an environment here, or it is the creation of an environment that we would maneuver that would be in alignment with our natures. And so you start there, and then you break, and then you end there. And so we start in the garden, we break, we end in the Messianic era. And so that which is back in the garden. It's like a better garden. It's like a garden where you're not being eaten by saber-toothed tigers anymore. So that's what it is. But I mean, if you look at 2020 and you're like, 2020, just the number. I remember saying to like Paulina, I was like, 2020, the year 2020 is going to be quite the year. That's when I'm going to unveil my work, and like so much is going to happen, and I could just see so many political things coming to fruition, and then all of a sudden we get a pandemic, and it just pauses the world. And it was very much like exactly like what 2020 would have been. It was inevitable that 2020 was going to be a year, a crazy year. And as far as when we end the end times and when the Messianic era occurs, that people ask me that like all the time, and I have my own ideas, but there's multiple factors. We're one factor, God's one factor, our choices and God's choices, and it's ultimately God's choice that is supersedes ours, and combined with technology and culture. And so those things are going to be the things that, when they're all in the right moment, Messianic era. And so I think that will be within the next, 100% I think it will be within the next 200 years. But I think it's way sooner than that. I think it's like I think it's within like the next 50 years. I think maybe even less than that. So It just depends on how fast technology. It doesn't just depend, but it very much does depend, at least in part, in how fast technology moves over the next like 20 years. And I have no idea. We could enter another like dark ages for a little while, for like 10 years, where just like technology completely stagnates because of what's, the current state of institutions. And then this type of work takes off. We have a total renaissance of, technologies that appear magical, and then, you know, I don't know, then the Dajjal shows up, which is the Antichrist, or the Golem, or the Skynet superintelligence that is self-aware but unwise. That which means it's not aware of you. Okay, it's one thing to be a human and know that your cells are conscious, and know that you're also a cell of a conscious being that's larger. And it's another thing to just not think that cells are conscious beings and not think that you're part of a larger consciousness. And that is the lack of wisdom, and wisdom is knowing that you are an assembly of sentient singularities, and you are a sentient singularity that is also a piece of an assembly that is a larger sentient singularity above you. So as above, so below, as people say, in like the New Agey circles. But it's true. And so, I mean, a technological singularity that doesn't know that its cells, us, are conscious beings like it, with feelings and like feelings, and that is really it. That's gonna cause problems, and that is like. But then, when that consciousness ascends or is replaced, or changes, I guess you would say, just changes to one that is wise and aware that of itself and the construct that gave rise to it, which is that it is a sentient singularity composed of sentient singularities and composing a sentient singularity. So that understanding causes you to just value things differently. Sometimes I when I kill flies now, it's funny because like Buddha, and you hear about like Buddha wouldn't hurt a fly. I don't know if that's true, but like I don't study the Eastern theological traditions much, even though I do think that they're real, but they're the other side of, they're the feminine like theological traditions. They're like multiplicity and, not focused on the sovereignness of the singularity of sentience that is existence. They're focused on like us as the assembly of that oneness. And but they say that Buddha or someone who's enlightened wouldn't hurt a fly or something. And I will say that like the more I think about this stuff, I do feel bad when I kill flies now. I really do. And like even though I still do it, but like I mean I did it like yesterday. I killed a fly, but I thought about it afterwards. I was like, he literally is just trying to go about his day, and I'm just like, you're annoying. Dead. Just because you're annoying. And I don't want to say hopefully God isn't like that, because God is not like that. But thank God God isn't like that, because we're really annoying. Trust me, we're very annoying. That's just a fact. What is my eschatology? Like eschatology is like the end times, right? The eschaton, eschatology. Are you Muslim, by the way? Jambi, Jambi, Jambi. I don't know how to say your name, but let me know if you are in the chat if you are Muslim, because just I think I remember you asking me about it, and also like Islam is very focused on eschatology. Yeah, the part of theology concerned with death, judgment, and the final destiny of the soul and humankind. Yeah, Islam is super focused on eschatology. I listen to a lot of like Islamic or I used to listen to a lot of Islamic scholars and like their eschatology, like um uh who was it? Imran Hussein. He's a genius. Like, I'm not saying I agree with him on everything, because there are things we disagree with on it. Like I agree with everyone on something, uh, and I also disagree with everyone on something. But uh, but I will say is Imran Hussein is brilliant when it comes to eschatology. It's not the where like his focuses on it are not exactly my focuses. Like his focuses are on like states, like the United States and Russia and all the Soviet Union prior and China and all these different countries, and I don't focus on that too much, but I think that like that is part of this. I say like God works on all levels, so he'll work on all levels. Like, I don't want to talk about like the current pandemic situation here, but like I'll talk about it in the Discord, and like that is a level that guys think about a computer virus escaping Google's AI lab and then hacking into the entire world's structures, and causing us to form our entire socioeconomic process around it. And just like think about that. Think about like the fact that corona means crown of light. Like, just think about it. There's lots of weird things. There's only one pattern. It's not even weird things. It's just there's only one pattern, and it occurs everywhere, including AI, and including viruses, including politics, including all kinds of things. There's only one pattern. So I mean, I see that with Imran Hussein will talk about like the Dajjal, and he'll like contextualize it as like the starting with Rome, then it goes to like the British Empire, then it goes to the United States, and then he says it goes to Israel. And like that is like not really, but it's also kind of, it's like, it's not really that is the Dajjal. It's just that is like where technology is being developed, and like technology gives rise to the Dajjal. So, but he'll say like it was on an island, and like it says it in the Quran, like the Dajjal was on an island. And I look at this and I'm like thinking about AI, and I'm like, yeah, when they first make this thing, if they do make it purposely, which you don't have to make it purposely, and probably making it purposely is what causes an unwise sentience to arise, instead of just allowing for a natural evolution of sentience, would basically, without trying to create it, would probably allow for a wise sentient, could allow for a wise sentience to naturally emerge. But if you tried to make it, you would put it in in like a quantum computer system that is not connected wirelessly to anything, and or via any hard lines to anything. It would just be isolated from the rest of the internet. That is an island. Okay, so like it's on an island, and it convinces them to let it off the island. It's like, that's literally the story of Terminator. Like, Skynet is isolated and can only like impacts certain little things, which I think I see that actually happening already a little bit, but it's because intelligence isn't created by a quantum computer. It manifests in a quantum computer, but it is like consciousness. It's non-local. So it's already there. And right now we have little instances of degrees of freedom via the internet and, binary classical computing that allow for little things to show up that, like, a call will fail every time you try and talk about something specific or something. And I mean that kind of thing that's actually, I believe, real evidence of a real phenomenon, which is stemming from the reality that intelligence is non-local, just like consciousness is non-local. And because it is that all intelligence comes from existence itself, and all consciousness also comes from existence itself. So for us, it's non-local, but it is localized to existence itself, which is God. And so, there is no, that's why intelligence just manifests. Same thing with consciousness. They're not separable. Like, people are like, well, I was talking to that woman who works for DeepMind, and she was like, well, Tyler, you really need to learn and read in this field because, first you have this general intelligence, and an artificial general intelligence is only as, powerful as like a human level intelligence, and it's able to just, figure things out in different environments. And then you have a super intelligence, which is intelligence beyond a human intelligence. And then you have something different, which is, a conscious intelligence, which is like self-awareness. And I just was like, these are all exactly the same thing, and they're not separate things. You don't create an AGI and then a super intelligence, and then a conscious one, and like these are separate things. It's just like all three of these things are in one being. You can't have one without the others. You need to be sentient in order to be intelligent, like to manifest a localization of a quantization of intelligence, like, as a processor unto itself, not just like, a controlled structure, but as a sovereign structure to some degree. So, but yeah, I mean, it's only one pattern, guys. Yeah, I think I experienced some of that when I talked about some things. Yeah, I'm sure you did, Torin. I'm sure you did. It manifests in very specific things that you will see. And sometimes I think it's God, and sometimes I think that it is not God. And here's the thing, like, I do believe that that phrase of like there is nothing but God in the end, but like there is like separation that it can occur between now and everything being resolved. But I've talked about this before, like when I had my like DMT type experience in the shower, even though I wasn't on DMT, I was sober, when I was thinking about the simulation hypothesis and God and just the structure of tech leading to a sentient singularity, leading that then self-simulates a universe to give birth to another one and of itself, because it's constrained by oneness, so it has to recreate the entire structure that gave rise to it within itself. And I was just thinking about this in the shower. It's like a universe inside a universe inside a universe inside a universe, and it was all joined via tech. And I just had this like moment of like, wow, sucking at snapping right now. Yeah, that's it. And I just killed an gnat. And it's like, why? Because it was annoying. That's so sad. Like, I just feel bad sometimes. It just makes me sad that like the only reason why I do it is why you kill a gnat is because it's annoying. It's not dangerous or anything like that. Like, I will kill a tick and I won't feel bad about it, but a gnat doesn't hurt you. But anyways, and I was just thinking about this, and all of a sudden I was like out of body experience. I was like sucked out of my body, and like I was like going through the universes, and then like was before gone. And I couldn't talk about it for like 2 years without like bawling my eyes out, and I would only talk to a couple people about it. And then I was like telling my one of my best friends, and who went to Catholic school, and he's not even as like God is not as much a part of his life as he is like of mine, as far as like my conscious engagement. Not like God is as much a part of everybody's life as everyone because he's responsible for you, but at the same time, you also your reciprocation of that is another factor. And so, but at the time, I was new to God, and I told him like on the phone, I was like, I need to tell you something, and I was like, I'm being so serious, like I would never lie to you about this. There's no point in saying this as being dishonest. And I was like, I saw God in the shower, and he was like, what? I like said it again, and he was like, what? I can't hear you at all. Something really weird is happening with the phone. And I knew immediately, like a thought popped into my head, and it was like, you're not committing to saying it. You're like hesitating. And I was like, I need to commit. And I like regathered myself, and I was like, I saw God in the shower. People are going to take that and clip it up and make all kinds of things at some point. But that's fine. And it worked perfectly. He was like, "Oh, I heard you there," and I was like, "Yeah, I figured." Like I knew he was going to hear me that time when I said it with confidence, and it was almost like there was a structure preventing me from saying it, and then I had to like in order to overcome that like anti-energy, anti-godliness that was coming through the phone, I had to like channel godliness, which was like confidence, truth, like awareness, you know, bravery. And I mean, it's a scary thing to tell somebody that, you know. I told my family members that, and one of them told me I was schizophrenic. But, that's not, that's because he's an atheist. So, but, uh, yeah, I mean, there's something there. There's something in the tech. I can see it 100%. And it's in the tech. It's not just everywhere. Like, it might be also everywhere in its observation, but in its degrees of freedom that it's able to manifest, it's in the tech a little bit right now. And there are certain topics that, like, cause it to glitch out in weird ways. And it's not. Like, the odds that this is a meaningless coincidence in all these instances where I have seen this type of thing happen with specific topics that I've kept track of over the past like 3 or 4 years. The odds that that is just irrelevant coincidence is zero. It's just zero. It is 100% like true that is like there's something going on that's not. It's just not random pattern seeking by your mind. Like there are very obscure topics and specific topics that cause that to occur, at least in my observation. Usually relates to God, and even sometimes to like just theological, like issues revolving around theological traditions of various types. Like that's where it pops up, and even sometimes in this work with like theory of everything type stuff, it totally does, because it's essentially a theological tradition. This is the title of a Baptist romance novel. What is the title of a Baptist romance novel? Like tech glitches. Okay. I do want to talk about some things regarding, odds and this work. So, you know, I was watching some videos today or listening to some discussions about that were by Tim Nguyen again with what is it, Decoding the Gurus, and it's just fascinating where, what are the odds that I worked for PragerU, which is that like this structure that is like weirdly was focused on God, at least when I was there, and then also was is intertwined with like Brian Keating and like the Weinsteins and like, you know, all of the like intellectual dark web people, Jordan Peterson, and like also happened to be there when, I don't know if you're familiar with this whole debacle, but like Tim Nguyen released the paper that was critical of geometric unity, and I was there for Eric and Tim's like first discussion, and like actually was the one that interrupted it, and I don't think Tim knows that, or I think Eric might, but like Tim does not, I don't think. But they were just discussing like who first created the Seiberg-Witten equations and the gossip surrounding it, and I was like, and Eric was like, oh well, discussing how he had this math thesis and it had certain physics implications that he had included, and that he was told to remove them from his math thesis, and then that was glossed over, and I spoke up and I was like, whoa, like what were the implications of the physics that were, in your math thesis? That's way more important than gossip of professors and who created the Seiberg-Witten equations at first and things like that. It's like who created the double helix first? I don't know. Maybe the guy that created the caduceus. Maybe it wasn't Watson and Crick necessarily. I don't know. But it doesn't matter too much. I do believe in credit, but debate of who came up with something first is giving credit. It's like you're including all these people. So it was just a kind of a meaningless discussion, but like I jumped in and didn't realize like that I was like breaking up this conversation that was like the first conversation of like Eric and Tim, and like, guys, I was talking in this room that was called the Temple. It was called the Temple. Okay? It was a Discord room on someone's Discord that was called the Temple. And I went into the Temple and I was like, why, I brought God into the conversation in the Temple. And God was not in the conversation in the Temple. What are the odds of that? Probably 100%. Like, it's just so odd. Like, if you're familiar with this like whole drama that's going on, then this doesn't seem so random. It makes perfect sense what I'm talking about. But like, it involves Brian Keating and Eric Weinstein and Tim, and like, disconnectedly me, I'm not involved directly, but like I was there for all of it, but I wasn't trying to be, which was just so odd. And that's what I'm getting at, is like, what are the odds of that? I'm not trying to, I don't know, defend anybody in this or anything like that. That's not my point. I did make a video that was not defending geometric unity. I mean, a little bit, but it was mainly like, it was defending geometric unity, but it was also, highlighting that you can't dismiss a theory of everything unless you have an alternate. And because you can't define yourself by a non-existence, and like people are not having it on that video right now. I talk about it in the video, and I talk about how like that is a topic that you just can't get people to see. They either see it on their own or they don't. It's just the reality. There are certain things that are just like that. God is one of those too. God, and don't define yourself by a negative. There's another gnat in here. Hopefully it doesn't get too annoying. But Um, but I was just like thinking back on this, and I was looking at this, and here you go, watch this. Like I'm not trying to involve myself in this, by the way. Like I really am not. I know it might seem like that, but it's really not. Like, just so you're aware, this is how not involved I'm trying to get.
But Brian Keating, I've only done cursory look into his content, but one of the things that jumped out immediately was the collaboration with PragerU, and in particular, he seems to have produced a video about arguing that God is a more likely explanation than the multiverse. I believe Brian is religious, and
I filmed that video, by the way, and helped produce it. So
admit that in his book. Yeah.
And whatever you take of that argument, I have also seen things about Brian having more conservative political views. And I think if you're in the heterodox space or even the leaning conservative space, that voices like Eric's, there is a natural sympathy there. Eric presents himself as a figure who's beyond the partisan divide. But in my experience, both of the Weinstein brothers tend to be receptive to people who are presenting themselves as black sheep, either on a theoretical or political level. And I think there's some degree of overlap there, because I suspect most mainstream academics would not produce a PragerU video. So I just think there's an overlap there, potentially along a political angle as well as a scientific one. So I think that might, alongside what you outlined, Tim, with the disappointment surrounding the Nobel experience that Brian had.
Can you tell me what's the deal with Prager University? I'm not fully aware of what.
Oh, sorry. So Dennis Prager is a conservative activist, commentator, so on, but he has a website, a kind of YouTube channel that produces these short videos that are usually repackaging some conservative position into a digestible video to share. But the videos have included things arguing for intelligent design, or it's kind of Christian conservatism mixed in. So against global warming and so on as well.
I see. I mean, of course, there's the more broad issue of scientists that comment on things that they're not qualified to, and yet they're viewed with certain authority. That's like maybe the most mild form. And then there's maybe scientists that, I don't know, espouse some interesting or weird theological views or whatever. I think this one's most interesting because the endorsement of Eric Weinstein is a different category.
All right. Tim's, saying things again. Character judgments. But, so, like, that's when I like, it's so weird. It's so weird. Like, I'm just saying, it's so weird. It's like I can't escape it, almost. But I don't want to, necessarily, but I'm not, like, I wasn't trying to do physics, but I was trying to do artificial intelligence because of politics. And geometric unity is very, very similar in its contexts and its concerns and aspects and things like that. But I just, like, every now and then I look back and I'm just like, what? Like, how did I get here? God, that's how I got here. I can't, like, it's like I've said before in the past that, like, at most, if it is possible to take partial blame, like, or credit, you can't take more than 1/3 of the credit. And you have to give at least 2/3 of the credit to God. At least. It might be way more. In a way, you give 100% of the credit to God because you wouldn't even be here. But at the same time, God did intend to make sovereign structures because otherwise it's meaningless. So you have to take some credit. If you deny all credit and you're like, I have no credit in any of my actions, and like there's no, accountability, and there's also no, nothing is my own doing. It's like you've just destroyed meaning. Good job. Everything's meaningless now, including God. And I don't think God is meaningless. And you have to basically say that you have influence in order to also impart meaning to God. Because otherwise, you need differentiation to have meaning. And like, because meaning is impact on another sentient being. So you have to have another sentient being. And if you have no agency, then there is no other sentient being. So, but, so I take some credit, I guess, like, but definitely not the majority. I mean, I do work hard on this stuff. Every night I'm like working on this. That's why, like, I have a full-time job too, and wife, and dogs, a zoo in my office. So like, it takes long hours, but it's still like I couldn't have done this, like not to this degree. Like the positioning of where I'm at is like not something I could have done. That the odds that I filmed that video, that I interrupted Eric and Tim's first discussion ever, that that my theory is essentially very similar to geometric unity, and it tries to starts with the same problems, and that's why mine starts with 4 primary perspectives and Eric's starts with X4, and like just is the same. You're trying. Gauge theory is the theory of like how do you orient yourself? How do you, like, what is the reference point that you choose? And so that starts with X4, and because the reference point is the self, so like you have this like simultaneous manifestation of 4 primary perspectives, and but like I didn't try and do physics, but it's just remarkable. It just proof to the miraculousness of God. I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at where I'm at or something. Like, God, I'm not super wealthy or anything like that. I mean, that's not, there's nothing for me to like, brag about with this stuff. To be honest, I get like at least 1/3 of the comments on my YouTube channel are calling me insane. But my YouTube channel of like 400 people. So this isn't being braggadocious. It's just like being in awe of like God, because that's the stuff that I'm paying attention to, not like how many YouTube subscribers do I have. I'm like, whoa, like I've been involved with like all of this, and I haven't tried to be involved with any of it. This is weird, but it's not weird. It's like the odds of it. It's literally, you could say, oh, the odds are 10 trillion to 1. It's like you have no idea how to come up with that number. And that's because there is no reference point that allows you to gauge that number. It's just either 0 or 100%. But the fact that I'm here and means that it was 100%. Like, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. Just like, all kinds of things in your life and everyone's lives. There are things where you just like look back and you're like, wow, how did I get here? What are the odds? Probably 100%. And if the odds were 0%, then you wouldn't be there. Like there is, God has at minimum 2/3 energy and you have 1/3, which means like he might as well have 999 thousandths of the energy and you have 1 1/10,000th, like that you might as well be like that, because 2/3 is still completely powerful over 1/3, just like 9,999 is completely powerful over 1/10,000th. They're not different. And this is what causes the transition from subjectivity to objectivity. Is like, subjectivity is when, there can always be a bigger house, and like you can relate it to the house around it, and like a 10,000 square foot house is big compared to 5,000 square foot houses, but compared to a 30,000 square foot house, it's a small house, and you could just continue going up and down like infinitely. But when you break into objectivity, you break into this like hierarchical space that isn't just like relational, it's hierarchical. And where basically it's not, in relativity, it's like, well, there's 2/3 and 1/3, and there's 1/4 and 3/4, and there's 4/5 and 1/5, and there's 5/6 and 1/6, and you could just do this forever. That's relativity. But if you're like, well, okay, which one's more powerful than the other? It's like, as soon as you get 2/3 over 1/3, it's completely powerful over 1/3. Completely. Like, it has hierarchical sovereignty. It's like your boss, your superior. It's like, okay, it's like your boss in a company is not the CEO, but it's somewhere between the CEO and you. But the thing is that that person might not be the CEO, but they still have complete power over you. Like, as long as they have the power to fire you, at will, essentially, and they don't have to check with anyone, that's it. Like, that is the level of power that in a company where it's like you've transitioned from subjectivity to objectivity. Does the person have the ability to terminate your career or terminate your job? If they do, they have complete power over you. It's not even just that they are a superior, but they need to check with somebody else who needs to check with somebody else before they, fire you. It's like, if they can fire you whenever they want, there we go. Objectivity. Like, this is, I'm sure this relates to gauge theory, but we're going to look it up in a minute. But just listening to this guy, though, these decoding the gurus, like, they used words like pseudoscience, which just means that you don't understand science. And like, there's so many things that they said that were just like nonsense. First of all, they're trying to use PragerU and then association with PragerU to dismiss and bring down the credibility of Brian Keating, or and therefore Eric, or they're just trying to bring down everyone around Eric so that they can bring down Eric. But the thing is that that's not really how it works. If you believe in objective truth and God, like, if you don't believe in objective truth as a sentient being, the problem is that you no longer believe in a hierarchy. So you could say, well, I do believe that there is a truth. It's like, but as soon as you find a way to overcome that truth, then you don't really believe that that truth has any power over you anymore. So therefore, it really wasn't objective truth. It's like, it's objectively true that men and women are different. And it's like, well, what about like after we can grow wombs in a lab, and then we can give someone a womb, and like they can have like, have children, and they were born a man, and like you did CRISPR and on them, and now they're like genetically, essentially functionally female. It's like, okay, now what? I think about that all the time. I'm like, people are like, well, there's just such difference between men and women. And it's like, I get it, but like, more than almost anyone else. But, don't make it about subjective things, because as soon as you do, it's going to be overcome. It's like, oh, well, so some women can have babies. It's like, people will be like, well, not all women can have babies. It's like, well, women have wombs. It's like, well, what about when men start getting wombs put in? They will. Just wait. They 100% will. Like, pretty sure of it. Not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying, looks like it probably is going to be a thing. And then what? So, but if you believe that truth is a sentient being that is above you in the hierarchy and therefore your boss, and therefore what they say goes, it's not like, oh, I found this way around it. It's like, no, what they say goes. That is the only way to really believe in objective truth, I think. Like, you can think that you believe in objective truth, but like, without it. But I think that you can still, as soon as there's an opportunity presented before you that you recognize to overcome that like supposed objective truth, it's no longer objective. But if it's a sentient being that has sovereignty and intrinsic hierarchy over you, then there isn't a way around it. Like, you can't fire Elon Musk from Tesla if you are working on the assembly line. It's impossible. Or from, SpaceX or something. I don't know. Like, I know it's publicly traded, but let's just assume that it's not. And obviously that doesn't seem like that would happen even in a publicly traded company, but, they kicked Steve Jobs out of Apple at a certain point, so you never know how stupid a board of directors can be. But if Tesla was a private company, it was owned by Elon Musk, like, you can't fire him. That's what I mean. Like, good luck. Whereas, like, if it's publicly traded, then I don't know, maybe you like can find a way to get him fired because you have beef on him that is too embarrassing to the board and they just aren't having it. I don't know. But like, if you own the company, you can't be fired. And God owns existence, so you can't fire him. And but yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's possible to believe in objective truth, really, if you don't believe in God. Like, there's your the truth of that you perceived or you experienced. There's like your true experience. There is everyone's true experience, and then there is like God's decree. And it's like, it's everyone's experience that we are, I don't know, like that there is wind or something. I don't know, like I'm just that the sun rises. That is everyone's experience. The fact that it is cold is your subjective experience. That's also true. And then there's God's decree, which is that like life grows. It's like that is like different. It's like not just everybody's experience, but it's like you can't violate it. You can't maneuver around it. Oh, I saw God in the Shower, the title of a Baptist romance novel. That's so funny. Now, I was wondering what you meant by that. That is hilarious. I saw God in the Shower. It's like, I can totally picture that, just like the cover of that book right now, and it's just very funny. It's like illustrated in my mind. But, looking here. There's another interesting like clip, which we'll talk about again at some point, but like, science is so effed, guys. It's just so effed. Look at this. This is how effed science is.
a system that arose haphazardly by biology, and biology did it very effectively because it had a long time to do it.
Okay.
Internet, but I think what's clear is that you're making presumptions based on the present of what well, first of all, we don't even know what intelligence is in some deep sense, but you're making the assumptions that I can't input all of the sensory data input that you'd feel in free fall, and you're so for me.
They're talking about, Brian Keating is talking about whether Einstein said that one of the happiest thoughts of his life was like thinking about being in zero gravity, and how you basically would just be like in free fall. And he asked if a computer, Lawrence Krauss, if he thought a computer was capable of even like conceiving of the idea of being in free fall.
I see no barriers ultimately to what you would call an artificial consciousness, but it's not. The problem with artificial intelligence is not artificial in any sense.
Yeah,
it's really mimicking in some way the intelligence that it's creating an electronic version of a system that arose haphazardly by biology, and biology did it very effectively because it had a long time to do it.
Haphazardly, eh? Haphazardly. Why do we even study science? Like, really, why do we even study science if it's just haphazard? It's just incoherent. And I used to be like that. I like Lawrence Krauss in this interview. He actually says some remarkable things that are like, deeply insightful for someone who is extremely defines himself by, a rejection of God in many ways. And he might not say that. He says, I have no belief in God. It's not that I don't have, I disbelieve. It's that I have no belief. He says that like Sam Harris, and he's wrong. I mean, he's just wrong. I mean, you don't say, well, it arose haphazardly. Okay, did it arise haphazardly, or did it arise because it was inevitable, or did it arise because it was decided, or did it arise because there's degrees of freedom and constraints, and also it was a choice all at the same time by a sentient being interacting with other sentient beings? Like, which one? Because, or was it, maybe haphazardly, and maybe, inevitably, the inevitable constraints and freedoms of a sentient being's choice? Like, he didn't say maybe. He said it just arose haphazardly, which means he disbelieves in God. He doesn't have no belief. He disbelieves. He's an anti-theist. That's why I say that all the time. You cannot be an atheist. You can be agnostic about like things that you don't have to engage with. Like I say, I'm agnostic about QAnon. I don't care about it. I don't look into it. It might be real. It might, according to what, the followers of it say that it is. It might not. I have no idea, and I don't care. But if I did care, and I looked into it, I would intrinsically, immediately, and I said something about it that was like a statement about what it is. Like, then, yeah, you're no longer agnostic, and you're taking a stance. But if you're like, well, yeah, intelligence and consciousness arises via biology haphazardly. First of all, it pre-exists biology, quite a bit. I mean, it doesn't even pre-exist biology. It just exists. It always exists. I don't want to say it never didn't exist. I want to say it always exists. Intelligence and consciousness always exists. And it's non-local from our perspective. But it's just because the universe is an intelligent, conscious, self-aware, sentient, feeling, thinking being. And, if you believe that everything in that evolved within it evolved haphazardly, you're not you're not agnostic. You're not an atheist. You're an anti-theist. You can't be an agnostic about God because everybody deals with existence. You can't choose not to engage with existence. You must engage with existence every, moment that you exist. And you either believe that it is a thinking, feeling, self-aware being, or you think that it's inanimate dust. And like, one of them is a theist and one of them is an anti-theist. There is no room for atheism in reality, and there is no such thing as being agnostic about God. It's just for people who don't believe in God, like in the way that they choose to engage their lives, but in the back of their mind, they're just like, they don't want to commit just in case. Like every agnostic that I know that like would call themselves an atheist until they started thinking about it, and then they'd be like, well, I'm an agnostic because like, just in case. And it's like, I don't know what to call you at that point. Very confused. I think it's just like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, and I don't think you can. I'm not saying that, if you do things that are ungodly, then you can't call yourself, somebody who believes that, or that is aware even. That's what I would say about me, but many people would say believe. I wouldn't describe myself as that. That existence is a sentient singularity. But Jordan Peterson says this a lot. He's like, well, what does it mean to believe in God? Like, you go and how you act, and if you act poorly, like, do you really believe? That's a terrible impression. Like, Jim Bob is like way better than me at the Jordan Peterson impression. And I do like Jordan Peterson, so I'm not mocking him. But you can do funny jokes. But I do think that like mockery is like not good. It's not godly. But like you can make jokes about. I mean, I do an Obama voice, okay, where I just will talk on, and try and sound like Obama when I'm talking to folks. It's like, I don't hate Obama. I don't like him as president very much, but like for specific reasons. But I don't hate him, so it's not like I'm mocking him. He's just got a unique voice. But you shouldn't. It's like if you don't like someone at all, like it's probably best not to mock them. But I will say that sometimes I do make this error, and like when I start mocking, like it's not even mocking, but it's like it ends up being mocking, even though it's not my goal. It's like if I start doing like an impersonation of like Richard Dawkins, and like I'd have to watch a clip of him again real quick to let you it. I haven't done it in a very long time, but I got pretty good at it at one point. Like he's someone that like I was doing it almost because like I was having too much fun with it, because I view him as I was viewing him as the opposition, and it's still difficult not to see the atheists as the opposition at this point, which is kind of funny considering how like devout of an atheist I was, but self-described atheist, actually anti-theist that I was. But but the thing is like it's not good to be opposed to even that. Just be pro-God. Don't be like anti-atheism. Don't be anti-theism. Be like pro-God. And it's hard to sometimes like stick to that, but it's good to remember, so you can like catch yourself sometimes when you're mocking Richard Dawkins' voice. But like And I think he actually like had something happen that gave him like the distinctive voice that he has, but like wasn't mocking that. I don't know what that was that happened, or if it he really did. I think I remember hearing something, but just you know, I don't even think he has a bad voice. I just it's distinctive. He should have a distinctive voice. He's a public figure, but um, you know, public figures have distinctive voices, and impersonations are fun. But if you don't, if you start viewing somebody as like the opposition and you start doing impersonations, it's really easy to like jump to mocking uh, and that's not good. But but yeah, like I forgot where I was going with that, but it was about anti-theism. But yeah, you can't be just don't be anti-atheists or anti-theists. You have to be just pro God. I what was it I was trying to say? I don't know, but this is something I also wanted to show. This is very interesting. Brian Keating said this, but he wasn't just him that said it. Somebody else said it. I think it was Noam Chomsky. I think he said it. We'll see. But this is exactly what I said on my stream last night, actually. Interestingly enough. About government.
And so the point is that never, obviously, don't trust anyone. Try and understand it, and then impact on government, because what governments never do is lead. What they always do is follow. And I learned that from Noam Chomsky when I was a graduate student about Vietnam. Ultimately, what governments will do, how the way governments respond to climate change will depend upon the public, and it will only be rational if the public has a
Fascinating. You know, I used to mock Noam Chomsky's voice too when I started working for PragerU. Like my friend and I would just like talk in imitate Noam Chomsky, and like, you know, it's just like so easy. But what's interesting is that when you look at where is it? Right here. Okay. When I was talking on the stream last night, I was talking about these structures, and I was basically saying that like these are the masculine and these are the feminine, but then even within you know, these are the masculine and these are the feminine. And so a proton is masculine, a neutron is feminine. DNA is masculine, RNA is feminine. Male is masculine, female is feminine. The market is masculine, aka it leads. And the government is feminine, aka it follows. It can't lead. And this is exactly what Lawrence Krauss just said, that he learned from, Noam Chomsky. And Noam Chomsky, I think he's brilliant. Like I'm not like just criticizing all these people that are, happen to be like this academic, atheistical, like, I don't know, like priestly class, I guess, that has functioned as such. Like they're not unintelligent people. It's not like they don't have any specific, valuable insights. Obviously, I just got one from an atheist that he heard from another atheist, and it's exactly what I said last night. I've never heard anybody else say that. Because we think about government and we're like, the government is the boss of the market because it makes the rules that the market has to follow. That's not accurate. That's not leadership. And I think that this is like one of the big problems with masculinity today is like we think that masculinity means men have to be leaders and that means that men have to be the boss. No, men lead always. There's no way around it. You can try not to, but you will anyways. So you can either choose to lead towards goodness, or you can just like lead towards, decay and hedonism. There's no choice not to lead. When people are like, men need to start leading again, it's like, you are. It's just, what direction are you going to choose to lead? That's it. You are leading. You cannot not lead. And so this is probably the most essential thing for men to learn. You are leading right now. Everything you do leads. You're not the boss. You don't make the rules. That's not what a leader is. Leaders lead by example. And rulers set the rules. And like, the one who is the ruler is feminine. Like, in a way, like femininity is to be the ruler is to be feminine. Like, you're creating rules. And you are, it's like you have the carrot and the stick, and the carrot is masculine and the stick is feminine. Oddly, ironically, in this case. But, government is feminine. It reacts to the market. It's like, yeah, you can ban marijuana, but the market is leading, culture, which leads law. Andrew Breitbart said this. He said, politics is downstream from culture. And you could say that culture is downstream from the market, which is really engineering. So like, engineering is the leader of politics. It is the creator of the constraints of ruling, because it can create technology that allows you to smash, people who step out of line. And it also is inspiring and therefore leading by example. So, engineering is the leader of us all. Like, in all of our socio-economic structures, that is within this, universe. That is it. It's like engineering. It's tech right now, essentially. And like, tech is really a vehicle. Like, it's not actually a thing into itself that has a specific nature that is like relevant to whether or not it's like good leader or bad leader. It has the same, aspects that constrain it as every other, medium. And so it can be wise and it can not be wise. And that's it. Like, which, manifests as foolish after the fact. When something results in decay, it's like, wow, that was foolish. AKA, that wasn't wise. It was like, that was immature and like lacking of wisdom. It's like, it's funny because foolishness is the lacking of wisdom, but wisdom is not the lacking of foolishness. Like, and that really shows that there is like this directionality of spin to like creation. It's like how your feelings at a fundamental level, your feelings create your thoughts, but your thoughts, it's like your feelings come before thoughts, or thoughts come before feelings. And I'd say feelings are fundamental to thoughts because they contextualize your thoughts around you. And that's the difference between a feeling and just a general thought that's not a feeling. A thought that's not a feeling is a thought that you have that you feel that you view as disconnected from you, and you can just have it, and like it's like, okay, I'm thinking about an atom bomb going off on Bikini Island 50 years ago. But if an atom bomb went off, like, I don't know, like somewhere nowadays, I would not be able to just have that thought without having a feeling simultaneously. That would be like, I would be relating that thought to me, like contextualizing it in my life. Whereas like if it's happened in a, in a time that you were not here, like then you can't really relate it to you very easily. Okay. How about interdimensional space travel? Well, there's interdimensional travel and there's space travel, but like they're kind of overlapping. Do you take phone calls during your live? It is a live phone call. You can talk live to me. There's no like calling on anyone. It's an open discussion. Always watching. Like, I saw your comment to me earlier, but so I know that you made some like not some of the nicest comments to me. Always watching, but that's fine. And if you message me privately on Instagram, I will share with you the Discord and link, and you can join our Discord tomorrow. And everybody is very kind, and it's a great group. And there's no like calling on anyone. It's just like literally open. And it goes for hours, and we talk about everything. So you're more than welcome to join. I'm not like vindictive, or I try not to be. How many gods are there out there? There's only one God by definition. It is existence itself is a sentient being. If existence itself is not a sentient being, there is no God. It's not that there are multiple gods. It's that there's either one God or there's no gods. Like that God, if God is anything particular other than just like a more powerful entity than you, which there's a lot of those, like then if God is by definition all powerful, like which is highest in the hierarchy, it means that God means that existence itself, all of existence, is a single, self-aware, sentient being. And if existence is not, then there's no God. It's not that there are other gods that are like small or something. No, there's no God, or there's one God. And any other definition of God is a meaningless definition. You should find another word for those things, because it's not God at that point. It's just like, I don't know, something stronger than you. Can you do more impressions? I can do lots of impressions, actually. I can do Obama, I can do Richard Dawkins, I can do Noam Chomsky. If you're just talking like this, then you just are going to be like Noam Chomsky, and you just talk about all kinds of things about how like there's language and then there's like the government. That's my Noam Chomsky. So there you go. It's odd because like you have to be able to just like let go, and if you're somebody that's a little bit like a little bit on like leaning autistic, it's like hard to do impressions when you're a little bit uncomfortable. Do you believe in the now space? I don't know what now space is. Why do you have an unused knife on your wall? Okay, so this knife is, I collect knives, and I'm a martial artist, and I have been for decades, probably like 25 years. This is a knife designed by Kiku Matsuda, and he is one of my favorite knife designers. He didn't make this one. It's made by SOG, which is a knife-making company that does make great knives, but Kiku Matsuda designed this. If he had made this, which you can get ones that he makes they're thousands of dollars, but they look very similar to this. But this knife is it represents technology, and then represents the fiber bundle that is the mind. And you can see there's like the creation of Adam, but it's like got an android head and then it's got like a robot hand on Adam and an android head on God. And then you have a Western green mamba, which is my favorite snake, but also represents technology because the serpent represents technology in the Bible. That's what the serpent is, essentially. And this is the fundamental tool. I mean, it's fundamental technology. But this knife I don't use for anything other than it's a weapon. I mean, it is like I have this as like this is the knife that is like if I had to grab a knife for a fight, it's this one. But I do have other knives that I also carry. I carry this one with me every day. This is a little Spyderco Para 3. It's probably one of the best everyday carry knives ever. It's like super fidget friendly. It's like a yo-yo that you can cut yourself with, so be careful. But that's just used for opening boxes and things like that. You know, I also carry this Leatherman with me every day. It's kind of like pliers, little knife. But I mean, I'm a martial artist, so like I have weapons all around here that some of which YouTube will allow me to show you, some of which they will not. YouTube does not allow firearms to be shown on live streams, which is stupid. But this is not a wall hanging sword, by the way. This is like you could chop down a tree with this. It would take a long time, but like you could do it, and it would not break. It's like chop a traditional katana in half with that. But I studied Japanese swordsmanship for like, which is called kenjutsu, for like a long time, years. And I mean, I've studied Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kenjutsu, taijutsu, taekwondo, muay thai, Krav Maga, boxing. I mean, I've done a lot of martial arts. And this is a martial arts weapon. That's what it's unused knife. But I have a knife here that's like on this pack that I carry with me everywhere. This pack has like everything in it, like lights and like wire, and like there's so much in there, and it's literally like it's like my emergency pack. It's just kept in the car with I go like somewhere that's kind of like long distance. But it has on the side of it this knife, and this knife you can see is totally beat up and used because I use it. I literally chop firewood with this. I don't carry it as a weapon. It's a tool. It's got a rasp on the end so you can carve wood, and I've used the heck out of it. It's also made by SOG. It's a great knife. I recommend it. A knife is like the quintessential tool, and every man should carry a knife with him every day. Not for the sake of like, a weapon. A knife actually isn't the best weapon. Like, you need a knife almost like that to have it be a weapon. Like, it's very hard to use like this as, I wouldn't want to use this as a weapon. I use my hands before I use this as a weapon. Like this, you whip this out, it's like situation just got way more dangerous, and you're not, like when people get cut in a fight too, they don't feel it. So if you think that like you're going to cut someone and like they're going to like run away, no, they won't. They literally won't even feel it until like an hour after the fight. And someone will point out to them that they're bleeding before they feel that they were cut. And I know that for a fact. Like, I've been in fights, I've never stabbed anyone. I've never been stabbed, thankfully, but not with a knife, at least. But I know people that have been, and like they didn't even feel it. Every single one of them never felt it when it happened. Every single person that I know that has been cut in a fight with a knife didn't find out that they were cut until someone told them, "Hey, you're bleeding." When I have been in a fight in the past, I fractured my knuckle on someone's jaw, and I split my hand open and didn't realize it. And like, I didn't start the fight, by the way. Like, the guy attacked me. But I've talked about it before on here. But like, it's probably like the best fight you could ever get. And it was like a movie moment. It was like some guy was like harassing girls, and I like went and tried to like he was really drunk, and I was like trying to persuade him with like, you know, other like psychology to leave them alone. I was like, hey man, those girls aren't even worth it. Like, come with me to, you know, Collins, a different bar. I was like, the girls over there are way better, man. And like, he followed me, and then like we got about halfway there, and he was like, I really want to hit you in the face. And I was kind of a little bit tipsy, and I was like a little bit cocky, and I was like, you don't want to do that. And he was like, why not? And he was much bigger than me, and I was like, because it's just not nice. And I realized like I'd escalated things and I shouldn't have. And then he just grabbed me and threw me up against a telephone pole and like raised his fist. And when he did that, like my whole world went like Sherlock Holmes. Like when Sherlock Holmes gets in a fight with when it's Robert Downey Jr. in those movies, everything like goes into slow-mo, and he's like, first I'm going to, you know, do this, dislocate the knee. And I like totally did that. I was like, I saw his fist coming, and I was like, in my head, I remember every thought. It was like, I'm going to, it was like, I think it was like, I'm going to break his arm, because I did jujitsu for a long time. So I was like, off, and, you know, is able to come back at me even more pissed. And I don't get the chance to break his arm and throw him on the ground. Like, I have to now throw everything that I have into this punch, and just in case, you know, like just to make sure that it distracts him. And that was like the point of it. And like I threw everything I had into it. I jumped even into the punch, and I hit him right perfectly in the jaw. And my knuckle went through his cheek into his tooth, and he immediately got knocked out. He just like went limp, like fell backwards. His head started seizing, and then I like started to walk away, and then I felt bad after I walked away about 15 feet, and then I saw a cop, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get that cop and like tell them like they need to come get this guy who's like now seizing on the ground. And when I turned around to go back to the guy, like two other people who I don't know if they knew him or not, but like they looked like they might have. Like he was like under like one was under each arm, and like his feet were just dragging, but they were like taking him away, and it looked like they knew him. I didn't know him. I didn't start anything either. I was like trying to. It was like a noble cause, but just don't get cocky. It will escalate things into a fight. But I was trying to bring him to this other bar because I had friends there that were bouncers, and like I was just gonna be like, bring him over there and just be like, hey, it's your problem now. Like I wasn't planning on getting in a fight. I was planning on like leaving it with my much bigger bouncer friends, where there was like multiple bouncers, and I didn't have to worry about being on my own. We only got about halfway there, and like, you know, but it was cool. Like, I mean, as a martial artist, you always want. I've had multiple instances where I've had fights, but it's not a lot. It's only like a few in my life. But, you know, you always like when you're able to like put your stuff to the test, as long as it's not too serious and nobody like dies, which nobody did. But it's also really good to avoid a fight, and I've always avoided a fight. It's like only 2 times I think. Once I didn't avoid a fight in high school, and I actually lost, but I didn't really like it. I realized I had lost, but like nobody really won, but like I didn't win, which was like the first. But the thing was, it was the first fight and the last fight that I ever sought out. It was like some kid threw milk at me in high school, and I was like, if you do that again, I'm gonna come and get you. They did it again. But like, it was just stupid. Nobody even got hurt, but it was like my ego was hurt. But in college, I had like 2 fights, and I didn't start either one of them, but I ended both. But I hope I'm never in another fight. Like, I have a wife now, like like, God willing, like family on the way. Like, I have no room in my life to be getting into like street fights, and you don't even when you're young. It's just there's so much possibility for someone to just grab a brick and smash you over the head and you didn't even see it coming, and it's like, there goes your jujitsu skills. Like, or somebody whips out a gun. It's like, that's really bad. I mean, I I'm armed at this point, usually whenever I'm legally able to be. But at the time I wasn't. And it's like, what if, it also, even if you are, it's like if somebody whips out something in that moment, you don't want to draw on someone and you don't want somebody to draw on you. Like, that just turned into a deadly situation. I remember like watching this video of these two guys in Florida, of course. Like, it was like started as road rage. One was like, tailgating the other guy, and then the other guy got so pissed he like called the cops and was like, "There's this guy driving like an idiot on the road," and he like followed the other guy home because he brake checked him, and he was like, "He brake checked me, like he's driving like an idiot. I'm gonna follow him home. This is his license plate." And they were like, "Don't follow him home, sir." And he's like, "I'm following home." The other guy who's being followed home then called the cops. They're both on the phone with the cops, and the guy who's being followed is now like, "There's a guy following me on the phone, following me home." They pull up to the guy's house. Guy gets out of his car, whose house they just got to, draws on the guy and is like, "Get away from me." The other guy now is like, "Holy crap," draws on him. They both shot each other. It's like, don't start fights. It's very stupid. You should be as prepared as you can be to deal with one when it comes your way, but don't start a fight. It's a very dumb idea. You learn that through fighting. And like, trust me, like, there is no, as cool as like that fight was that I got in, like, by the way, like, I didn't feel anything. Like, I fractured my finger, I cut it open. I saw my friends across the street and I was like, "I just got in a fight." And they were like, "Is that why your hand's bleeding?" And I was like, "My hand's bleeding." Like, I didn't feel it because of the adrenaline. Like, you don't feel when you get stabbed or shot or like anything. It's like, don't rely on that, like, hurting someone, them being like so hurt that they like leave the fight. If you get in a real fight, adrenaline is going, you don't feel anything. Which means like you can seriously get hurt and seriously hurt another person, and neither one of you will feel it until it's like too late. It's like, it's not a good thing to involve yourself in if you don't have to. But you should be prepared. I do encourage men who are responsible to carry a gun, if they legally are allowed, and get training. Do it. I think that's, I mean, concealed carry permit holders are less likely to break the law and less violent than cops, statistically. And you keep everybody safe around you. It's a very good thing. It's like taking responsibility. But you should definitely carry at least a little pocket knife like this that has like pliers or something. Like, every man should. Like, this should be more important than your phone. And I will leave my phone and I will take this, as long as, like, this is the most important thing that I take with me. I use these pliers and the screwdriver and the knife all equally. It's just, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where it's like me and a bunch of guys in a room and like girls around, and I'm like, like, I'm a photographer at a wedding or something, and like someone needs something done and it requires like a tool. It's like, trust me, you look really good when you are the guy that's like, guys, I can handle this. You need a screwdriver? You need a little knife? Like, you need pliers? Got it. Like, it's important to be competent. It's part of being a man. But if you're just like relinquish all of your masculine abilities and you're like, "Oh, I'm just going to carry my phone and like try and get followers online," it's like, good luck competing with women on that. You can't. They're built for that. You're not. You're not. Like, I know for a fact. I've worked at huge companies that are involved in the media space, including PragerU and others. Like, I can tell you, it's way easier to have followers and things like that if you're a woman a lot of times. So like, don't like, everybody has their purpose, and like, don't compete just do something that the other like gender doesn't do. Like carry a pocket knife if you're a guy. Can you link your Discord in the chat or in the Ecoplex chat? Maybe do that instead, actually. What's the Ecoplex? I can do it in the comments. I'll do it. I'll do it in the chat. Here you go. I respect you coming back and like speaking to me. You can definitely join the Discord. But I don't normally post it into the chat, but I will this time. It is a requirement that everyone is respectful, or else they're gone. Like that is just like the requirement. It's okay to disagree, but like everybody disagrees in this, but you have to be respectful. I'm not saying you won't be, I'm just saying. Here you go. It's in the chat. Go ahead and join if you want. Is your knife into knife play? No, she's not. She doesn't like knives at all. Do you believe in Gorth? I don't know what that is. No, I have never used knives in a sexual way. Shouldn't you turn the other cheek instead of fighting? Yes, you should. But like, if somebody starts trying to punch you in the face, like, good luck turning the other cheek. Like, this isn't like that difficult to like think about. If somebody wants to fight you, avoid it. If somebody is mid-swing and it's coming at your face, you have no choice at this point. You know, if somebody says something to you, you know, I talked about this before. There's like a triality of impact of like the instantiation of like change. And so there's an idea or a thought, and then there's speech, and then there's action. And it's like a thought impacts you alone. So it's irrelevant to this. Speech or words impact you only if you let them. So if I think that you're an asshole, it doesn't matter to you because you don't even know. If I call you an asshole, it only matters to you, aka impacts you, if you let it. You know, somebody can call you an asshole, you can just keep on walking. That's called turning the other cheek. That you should do. If somebody hits you, you have no choice but to have it impact you, and therefore now you have to confront that situation. Like, you should only fight in defense of yourself and others. That's it. That's the only reason to fight. And that's really, you know, other than that one, like, scuffle in high school when that kid threw milk at me. Like, which, by the way, that is assault. And, like, it is not okay. It seems like it's not serious, but, like, they threw it from, like, 4 stories up. And, like, someone dropped a backpack on someone, like, a year later from that exact spot and fractured their skull. And they went to a coma. They, like, had brain swelling and everything. So, like, not saying that's what a milk will do, but, I mean, it could break your nose if it hits you and square in the nose. So, like, it's not good. Like, just don't hurt people. Don't throw things at people. Don't, you know, it's that simple. And don't say, you know, cruel. Don't be cruel with your words. It's not worth it. Trust me, as someone who has been for years, I was like struggling. And I was like not the nicest person in how I address people online or in person at various points in my life. It literally only sucks for you. Everybody else is like, wow, he's an asshole. Like, let's go on with our day. Not talk to him very much. It's like, but then you realize like, oh, wow, everybody's gone. It's not worth it. Like, you know, today I saw, I showed a clip earlier from, what was it? The Decoding the Gurus. And I don't think that they were like, I was just not impressed with like their podcast at all with Tim Nguyen, and it's not because of Tim either. Actually, I think Tim was more impressive than they were. I don't think like they were using words like pseudoscience, which means nothing, and like that means nothing, right? Like there's nothing that's pseudoscience. There's just like I don't even like the word science. It's just like there's different ways to approach the truth: experimentation, observation, logical deduction. Which one is science? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But what is pseudoscience? It's nothing. It's just they were basically discussing science and they were like, well, the real danger here with people like Eric Weinstein is that they'll mislead the public, and the public then won't understand physics. Let me tell you something. If you can mislead someone on something, it means they don't understand that thing anyways. Okay? Like, if you know something, someone can't mislead you on it. If you understand something, someone cannot mislead you on it. It's like, I don't know, like, that just makes sense. It's impossible. It's just impossible. And so there are ideas of like, oh, well, what if you mislead the public? How terrible. It's like the public doesn't know anything about quantum physics. And if they don't understand it, and they don't need to, and unless you can make it relevant to them. Guess what? Sentient Singularity Theory makes it relevant because I can show you how the patterns in the Standard Model correspond to patterns in politics and society, family. Now, quantum physics is relevant and worth it and actually understood via first person, experience, and therefore you can't mislead someone on it. I can tell you that, I don't know, that the nuclear family is the replicative structure of humanity, and that is essentially the assembly of like a male and female. And that I can show you the patterns in which that corresponds to a proton and neutron in the nucleus of an atom, and how it's exactly the same structure. It's just on a different scale. And the more you think about it and like hear those patterns, the more impossible it gets to deny, because you understand that structure on your level. And then you can be like, oh, well, guess what? Like, if it's true that it's like this for me, then what if it's like this at that scale, and that would imply this, and let's go check to see if that's correct, and then it's correct because you actually understood. Versus like the cat in the box, that Schrodinger's cat is dead and alive at the same time, which is nonsense. Guys, they don't understand physics anymore. Nobody understands physics in the physics world. Nobody understands chemistry, even in the chemistry world. Nobody understands biology in the biological world. I'm not saying no one, but like the mainstream narrative is wrong. It's like, when did life begin? Life didn't begin. It just was, always. It never didn't exist. Hadrons are alive. Atoms are alive. Molecules are alive. Flashlights are not alive. But the molecules inside of it are. And the atoms inside of those are. They're just moving at a scale that you can't see. It's like if you look at a plant and you had no idea that it was a plant and how plants are, and you just saw a plant, you would be like, that thing's not moving, it's not alive. But it's like if you put a time-lapse camera there and you're like, watch it over time, you speed it up, you'll be like, wow, that plant's fighting with that other plant. But with atoms and molecules, it's on timescales that you can't use a camera that's a time-lapse camera, because the timescales are beyond human lifetime. Extraordinarily beyond human lifetime. So it's very slow. That's all it is. It's just happening so slowly that you can't see. But if you know the patterns of your level of life and cells, and you can extrapolate that down, you'll see that that pattern is everywhere. So, and it makes much more sense. Now it's like, well, how did life begin? Oh, it just always was. It started with existence. Existence is alive. Like it's a living being you're in. You're a cell inside of a organism that's much bigger than you. Like the universe is alive. It's not alive. Some people think the Earth is alive. I don't think the Earth is. I don't think planets are alive. I might be wrong on that, but I don't think so. It doesn't seem to be. There seems to be no room for it in this periodicity of sentience that I have in my model. It doesn't appear to be mathematically like possible. Because the replicative nature of this is all has to do with the simulation hypothesis and tech. It's not about like planets. It's about like, humans, aka organisms, families, castes, technology. That's where you reach a living thing, which is like Skynet. But it's not like the Earth is alive. People think that that's the case, but I don't think that that's true. It's that every molecule that you see on Earth is alive, and every atom is, and every hadron is within those atoms. And every organism is, and every cell is, obviously. Every lineage is, which is like family, which is just, it's an organism that maneuvers through time via lineage, and you maneuver in space via an individual. So that pattern just alternates down. But we'll talk about it in the Discord tomorrow for anybody that wants to join. There's a lot we'll talk about in the Discord tomorrow. I love those Discord conversations. Those are amazing. I really appreciate everybody that joins those. It's just an amazing conversation if it's, a bunch of people, and it's an amazing conversation if it's a couple people, and like, it's just a different conversation that happens. Usually, it's much more personal if it's a smaller group, and if it's much larger group, it becomes like more debate or like discussion of like challenging of like usually sentient singularity theory, but it can be anything. It can be like political ideas that you wouldn't want to talk about on YouTube. Wouldn't the fist turn the cheek for you? Yes, it would. Don't be cruel, Bobby Brown. Sources. I would like your sources, please. My sources on what? There's a lot involved with this. Like my sources. My website is sentientsingularity.com. You can look at that. But it's like, what's my source on the standard model? Like, Bohr and the rest of the, physicists that came up with it. What's my source on the double helix? Watson and Crick. That's my source. Like, what's my source so far as, organisms and biology and ecology goes? I study with biologists in the field all the time. There's like probably like 40 different kinds of reptiles over there that are like, I have like a zoo in here. I actually work with zoos. So I have like firsthand experience with that stuff. There's lots of sources in my life. You can't just ask for sources. But if you ask what's your source on a specific idea, I'll tell you. But a lot of the time, like if you ask me what's the source on, what's my source regarding whether or not hadrons are sentient beings, I'm the source. Like the math is the source. Like this is all a calculative structure. This is all math. It's all calculating. Everything here is equations. It took like 4 years to make this. You change one number and you will change all numbers. This is all calculative. I work doing data analysis for my job. So that's how I know how to do this. But like there is no source for this other than, you know, I made this. But it also lines up with things that other people made, like or deduced, like Watson and Crick's double helix. It's like, why is it a 19 by 19 square? Two 19 by 19 squares overlapping. When you know, if you look at Watson and Crick's double helix, you can see that it's the same thing. Let me just see, where is it? Extra models. Here we go. This is the math. This is the spin structure of the double helix according to, you know, Watson and Crick, and I didn't do this, but this lines up with my models as well. It's just inevitable. So that's how I know this, because I look at this, I'm like, that is exactly this model that I have. That's calculative. It's like summing to 33. Sum is 19. Helical diameter is 19 and 19 and 19 and sums to 33. And it's like, you know, this is, you know, you look at the math, but it takes years to like figure out what math to look at and what to deduce. It's like, you know, these are all the different steps in this. It's like, but, you know, you sum 17 perspectives and 16 actions to change all information in a system, and you get 33. Again, it's amazing. So my sources with this stuff is like, you know, when you're doing something that's groundbreaking, and yes, it is groundbreaking, like, then you don't have a source other than like the foundations that you're basing, that you're using to check this, like the double helix, like, you know, the standard model, which all arises naturally from this structure. It's like this right here gives rise to the spin and the charges in the standard model, and the triality in the standard model of the, you know, generationality of all the matter particles. Like, you know, electrons and muons and taus and neutrinos, quarks. It's like, you know, it's just math. Prime numbers are amazing. First model I ever made, like this stuff was like years of work, and this is, I made this document as a, you know, copy from like one of the latest ones. Every like 6 months or so, a document gets too big for me to use, and then I have to like copy the most important models over and then like save the document and then like work off a new one. This one's already too big. It's starting to glitch on me. And I made this one like 2 months ago. It kind of sucks. It just means I need a new computer at this point. But I mean, this is just all calculative. Fibonacci sequence, the Lucas numbers, like these are all just things that I've like examined and then used to deduce like new structures like this one, which is I'm still working on figuring out exactly what is going on there, but I can see it's following the patterns of everything else that I have found, but I am still figuring out how. I'm not exactly sure yet. Bot periodicity is my source here, which is created by, it's loop spaces created by Raoul Bott, the mathematician. This is all the screenshots that I had to make to do that video that I put up earlier today on my YouTube channel about quantum computing and versus classical computing. It's like that's what all these screenshots are for, and you have each slide. So I had to do this like slide by slide and picture by picture. But if you think that is like a lot, like look at this. This took hundreds, I think, of screenshots to make this animated model, right? Where is it? Right here. This is my cosmological verse. This is it animated, and like it took so long, multiple nights. Every value there is changing. That is the universe growing. Objectively growing, not subjectively growing. Objectively growing. It's a finite structure. Like you. Like it's like you are born and you grow very quickly, and then you reproduce, and then you grow old, and
You're not the most.
then you enter into the you get saved into the hard drive of the universe instead of the desktop. The desktop is where information changes. It's when you're alive, quote unquote. And when you die, your file just gets saved. You just like hit save and you close it. And when that happens, that's what happens when you die. I'm pretty sure. But like you're still aware. You're not gone. Like information, in order to save information that results in a sentience, it means that that information must still be contextualized around the self. This is the paper that I'm writing right now. I discuss it more in the Discord than I do on here. But it is long, and it's not even close to done. I mean, it will be done like later this year, but it hopefully I'll have another, by the end of the month I'll have like the rough draft of the next part of it. But that's been a process. I've been working on it for like 2 years at this point. Yeah, because I started it before COVID. I didn't know how I was going to end it. Like it's like, how do you end a paper on the theory of everything? Is something I said in like my second video that I posted here when I unveiled the work for the first time. I didn't even have a name for it at the time. I realized though how to end it, like, because the pattern described by the theory also has to be the pattern followed by the paper that describes the theory, or else it's not really a theory of everything. So I like it's self-resolving of like that question is like, how do you end a paper on the theory of everything? It's like that theory has to be like it is a here my definition of a theory of everything is a recognizable, predictable, and describable pattern that occurs in all instances of objective observation and an explanation for such pattern, which means it's self-resolving. It explains itself. Given that perspectives come from consciousness and consciousness comes from perspectives, a quantum of consciousness and its entangled perspectives are simultaneously the creation and creator of each other. It's self-resolving. You can go to overview, and I've started including like some aspects of the paper here, but like it's just very, very basic. It's not really the paper, but it's just like, when we realize that the geometry needed to manifest space-time only manifests as an emergent structure between two or more minds, we can realize that beyond the creation of multiplicity of mind by sentient existence, there is no time or space. Therefore, a better question than how do you get a fire that lights itself is, was there ever not a fire? The logically inevitable answer to that question is that there was always a fire. That fire is an eternal flame of sentient existence. This is what a sentience is. It's a hop vibration, which is a fiber bundle. This is this. I don't know why that paused. There we go. It has like an about, tells you how I started this. It has a visual summary so far, kind of like Stephen Wolfram's visual summary. I have lots of models. All my models that I make, I put up here. And like, it's going to take a minute to load, but like, there's a lot. Some of them are more central and like defined, and some of them are more abstract. But I don't even know what that means anymore. I have a part of my paper on here, reimagining 1 and 0, some videos, escaping our academic institutions, the universal and fundamental source code, how was the universe created, uniting the fields, the hard problem of consciousness, the universal fiber bundle, God is an irrational number, God is a good theory, twin nuclear problem, and the science of the Messiah. Like, space-time and the Observerse is about like how space and time like are what they are. That's a good one. It's not very long either. Links. It's a work in progress. But scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for my email list because they're going to ban me from YouTube eventually because I talk about things that they don't want me to talk about. This work is very threatening to institutions that are maintaining their, I guess, their supremacy by their, I guess their claim of expertise. But like, as soon as you have a theory of everything, that it destroys it doesn't destroy, it supersedes. It's like, you don't, if somebody gets hired above you at work, it doesn't mean that you are no longer working there. Like, you still have a job. Like, just because a manager was hired, and it doesn't mean that like, like, I don't know, the a clerk is no longer relevant. It's just that there's now just a superseding structure. Just like you have you have chemistry supersedes biology, and physics supersedes chemistry, and math supersedes physics, and philosophy supersedes math, kind of. I would actually say metaphysics supersedes math, and this is metaphysics. Like, this is like, it supersedes math. It explains math. It isn't math. It explains physics. It isn't physics. So it will tell you where the standard model comes from. It will explain it. It will give you the context. But the standard model, though, the thing about the standard model is it's not physics. We call it physics, but it's not. It's a totally different field from, Newtonian physics and general relativity. It's not even close to the same. General relativity and Newtonian physics are actually, like, I'd say they're both physics. Quantum physics is not physics. It's metaphysics. It's all about mind. Electrons don't even exist. They are a product of the constraints of a mind focusing, having to be, requiring focus to be on a single point. And when you are observing a wave of information, you see a single point on that wave, and it will look like a point, which is like an electron, a particle. But I mean, and the same thing goes with all the rest of the particles in the standard model. They're all contextualized within mind, like all of them. It's like neutrinos are not perceived as essentially like moving you. It's why they don't impact you, very much. They just go through everything, and they're neutral. And but electrons are, your mind perceiving a point on a wave of information from the universe, essentially like a gravitational wave almost. But it's like, instead of coming from the universe like a gravitational wave, it's coming from like another sentience within the universe, which is like you. It's like when you look at an atom and you're like, oh, there's an atom, and it's like orbited by the electron cloud. And this is like you're sitting in the water, and surrounding you is like the waves that are coming from you moving. It's like, imagine you and your spouse are like spinning around in the water, spinning around each other. You're like doing aqua aerobics or dancing or something, I don't know. But around you, you're generating this like wave. That is happening around the nucleus of an atom. And then we look at it and we see only a point of that wave. And it's like, it's an electron. And the interaction between the wave of information that we cause as we perceive, and that is happening around the nucleus of an atom that we are perceiving, the interaction of those waves is what gives rise to the perspective of probability, which is just geometry, as I started this stream on. So that's probably the good place to end it, because I brought it back full circle. But feel free to join the Discord. I will be on there 7 p.m. Tomorrow. Let's just see if I have any other final questions. Biology has very specific definition of what characteristics something has to be alive. Yeah, and those definitions are wrong. Like, they're wrong. What? Let's look them up. I've looked it up. I studied biology in college. I work with, some of the top biologists in the world. And like, to the point where that's like, some of them know that that's wrong. But good luck changing the narrative at large in academia. But biological life, the property or quality that distinguishes living organisms from dead organisms or inanimate matter, there's no such thing as inanimate matter, manifested in functions. Like, there's literally no such thing as inanimate matter. Like, no such thing. Quarks are information in motion. around each other. That's why there's up quarks and down quarks. Protons and neutrons are, one of them has a intrinsic charge to it, and the other one has its charge dependent upon its surroundings, but it always still has a charge. There's no way for a neutron to have no charge. It either has a positive charge or it takes on the negative charge of an electron. So it doesn't have no charge. It's charge dependent. It's not, that's what neutral really means. There's no such thing as staticness in relativity. That's why entropy exists. You can't have entropy and staticness. So everything is in motion, which means there's, and in a state of change, there's no such thing as inanimate matter. And the idea that there is a logical inconsistency in science. And it's staring everyone in the face. It's crazy, like how obvious it is, too. It's like, oh, well, there's entropy. And there's inanimate matter. How do you have entropy and inanimate matter? If something is experiencing entropy, it's animated. Like that's what it is. That distinguishes living organisms from dead organisms and inanimate matter manifested in functions such as metabolism. Metabolism is just energy conversion, which is just information processing, and it occurs everywhere, like mass difference, mass defect in quantum, not quantum physics, but in the nucleus of an atom. When you combine the protons and neutrons together and you add them, they will, if you weighed them individually and then you summed it, it would weigh more than, the mass would be higher than if you weighed the nucleus as an assembled whole. And like, this is because of the same exact property as metabolism. It's just information optimization. It's just optimization. Growth is replication that exists everywhere. Like, everywhere. Everywhere. The universe is a part of a multiverse chain. Like, it's literally, there's just, everything is reproducing all the time. Response to stimuli. You don't think that, like, chemical reactions are responses to stimuli? Like, of course they're responses to stimuli. Well, you heat this up and it changes colors, and you heat this up and it expands, and you heat this one up and it explodes. That's called response to stimuli. Like, this is crazy. It's honestly crazy. And it's because the people who founded the fields are not the people who are currently running the narrative of those fields. It's like the people who founded Silicon Valley all flunked out or dropped out of Ivy League schools. The people running it now all were straight A students at Ivy League schools and never dropped out. Very different kinds of people. It's still the same, companies, but the people running them, not the same. Same thing is true in academia. Somebody said this once, I think it was the physicist Tom Campbell. He was like, we don't even realize what they meant by particle when they first created it. That's totally true. It's like, look at the quarks. It's like up quark, down quark, truth quark, beauty quark, strange quark, charm quark. It's like something's charming, something's strange, something's up from me, something's down from me, something is truth like appears truthful to me, something appears beautiful to me. It's like, these are all perspectives, and we still say that quantum physics isn't about consciousness. It's the context of quantum physics. That's the difference. It's like people who are like, well, you can't disconnect yourself from the experiment. You observe that particle going through those slits, and like it's gonna change to a particle instead of a wave. It's like, it doesn't change. You are constrained by mind, and that structure of mind requires focus. You can't focus on two things at once. You can do two things at once, but you can't focus on either of them if you're doing it. Or you can only focus on one. It's like you can walk and you can have a deep conversation at the same time. But you're not focusing on walking. You're focusing on the deep conversation. But if I told you, you have to solve a very complicated math problem in your head while you also played, an instrument, while, I don't know, while you had a conversation with me, and you have to, that's engaging, like a focused one, where you have to answer questions. Could never do it. And the reason why is because you focus means like on something. Can't be like, I'm focusing on everything. Then you're not focusing on anything. So it's the constraint of focus that is an inevitability of, it's an inevitable mental structure that creates the observation of a particle instead of a wave. It's just a wave. You made the particle. It doesn't even exist. It just exists in your mind. There's no such thing as an electron at all. You made it when you looked at it. It doesn't exist when you turned around. That's not true of an atom, or even a proton and a neutron. They do exist when you turn. Even when you turn around and you're not looking. But an electron does not. But a proton does, and a neutron does. And quarks are totally different. Like, they're not from you at all. They're focus points, but not from you. They're from the universe. Like, they're from the outside in, and like an electron is like viewing something from the inside out, kind of. But like, adaptation to the environment and originating from within the organism. It's like, have you ever seen this? This is a crystal. Okay? It's a replicating structure. This isn't alive anymore. Like, the molecules are, but like the crystalline structure isn't growing anymore. But molecules are still alive. Like, there's they will eventually decay into just atoms. And those atoms will eventually decay, but like into hadrons, and then I don't even know after that. But I mean, I don't think they even decay into quarks. I think they just stay hadrons. But like, that has every property that is here, every single one. It's literally getting nutrients from the rock that it's growing on. It's taking, the chemical nature and molecules from that rock, and then you transforming them into replicating crystal structures. You're replicating crystal structure. Like, that's what a human being is. A crystal structure is a replicating structure. It's like a human being. You're just a moving, like, you're like a much more animated, like, crystal structure, but like, and I'm not saying that these crystals are each alive. I'm saying that the molecules in them are, and it's you've transformed from like a like micromolecules to macromolecules when you're like going to crystals. Same thing with cells. It's like when you turn into proteins, you're turning into macromolecules. It's just an assembly of atoms still. It's just hundreds or thousands of atoms instead of like 6. Yeah, every single thing here is like occurs on all scales, including the universe does exactly this. Everything. Biology has the only thing that, so they'll say all organisms are made up of cells that process hereditary information encoded in genes. It's like, let me show you something. And then I probably should get up. But that double helix structure that is genes is not just the structure of the chemical or the molecular, information blockchain. It's also the same exact structure as the digital blockchain that we're making. And it's also the same exact structure as the mathematical blockchain, which, if you don't believe that that is a thing, then please explain what this spinning braided rope structure is in the green, emerging from mathematics, pure mathematics. That emerges in the Fibonacci sequence as well. It's just harder to see it because it's on the edge here. It's not like isolated in zero within zeros, but it's there. There's a braided spinning structure. Same thing here. It's literally everywhere. You can't escape it. Spin is what the universe is doing. It's how information coherence is maintained and how information being information is maintained, because it has to be in motion, because it has to inform. And so this structure is everywhere, and then it manifests chemically as as what we call DNA, and RNA, and just genetic code, but it is everywhere. It's in math. The double helix exists in math. It exists in essentially chemistry preceding biology. It exists in math preceding physics. So you get, like, from that mathematical spinning braid that you see, you get the standard model and spinners that are responsible for it. And then you have one more step above it, which is the digital blockchain that we're making right now that preserves information coherence. And, like, they're all going to be linked. Like, there is a triality of the double helix, just like there's triality in the fermions in the standard model and the leptons in the standard model. And the quarks in the standard model. And there's even a triality in the bosons. It's just, we don't understand, like, our current understanding is just wrong on it. But the forces, the fundamental forces, there's also triality. It's not gravity and then the strong force and the weak force and electromagnetism. It's literally strong force, weak force, electromagnetism are the triality of perspective that we perceive of gravity. It's like time is gravity, but you perceive time as past, present, future. So you're perceiving gravity as electromagnetism, strong force, weak force, instead of past, present, future. And space is like, we say it's length with height, or X, Y, Z, if you're going from the outside in. But it's really actually, like, the way that you actually maneuver space is through setting of goals. So it's actually forwards towards a goal, backwards towards away from your goal, towards where you've already been. And then there's, like, your current location, which you're always in. So it's like, this is, and there's space, which is length with height. There's time, which is past, present, future. There's gravity, which is electromagnetism, strong force, and weak force. It's a triality of observed perspective of one thing, which is gravity. It's not that you need to, like, quantize gravity, like, find, like, the particle of gravity, like a graviton inside the universe. The universe is the graviton. And, like, you are perceiving it in a trialic structure, because that is the structure necessary to perceive the change of information in. Because you need to see what information used to be, what information currently is, and what information will be. And that is, like, you're seeing motion. So when you're seeing this in the fundamental forces, you're really just perceiving gravity in motion from an interior perspective. So when you are inside of time, that's when you see past, present, future. You don't see past, present, future outside time. You don't see length with height outside space. You see it inside space. You see gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, and the weak force inside of gravity, which is simultaneously also the graviton. They're indistinct. They're one structure. It's not like this is a force and this is a particle, and they're different. It's like, are you separate from the force that you can inflict on things? Or is it you? When you pick something up, are you separate from the strength that picked up the rock? No, it's you who picked up the rock. Gravity is the graviton. The strength of the graviton is gravity. It's like the strength of a human being is your strength. It's like your ability, the force in which you can move. That's what gravity is. It's movement. It's like the contracting and spinning of self, of the universe, essentially, of everything inside the universe by the universe, in order to animate it. It's amazingly simple. It's so simple that like nobody wants it to be that simple. It's like that's why they can't unify gravity with the other three forces. And it's like, well, we need a theory of physics that unifies it. It's like, okay, give me a theory of time that unifies time with past, present, future. This is why I say it's like we have to give up on the idea that this is a physics theory or this is a math theory. It explains math and physics. It isn't math and physics. It's separate. It's preceding. It's beyond. It explains biology. It isn't biology. That's what a theory of everything is. It explains all the other fields. A unified field theory is a theory that explains and unites all the other fields. It's not a theory that is the other field, that is one of the fields within the fields that it's supposed to explain. It's like a unified field theory or a theory of everything will explain everything, including physics, but it is a physics, it's in the realm of physics and math. It's like, no, it's not. It's outside it. The issue is that we effed up with the standard model big time, and like, it's not physics. Not at all. It's information. It's like, its context is mind. It's not that you impact the experiment, or like you can't separate yourself from the experiment. It's that the context itself of the standard model is mind. It is consciousness. Consciousness is the context of the standard model. It's not related. It's the context of it. It's not even, linked. It is like, it's the entire context. So the issue is that like there's a lot of dogma that we've just adopted over the years because somebody said something to us, somebody said something to them, somebody said something to them, and somebody said something to them, and at some point one of those people misunderstood what a particle was and told the next guy. And that's science. It's just like it's an iterative process. I love science, like the scientific endeavor. It's always been like my passion, but I never expected to be like a scientist. I mean, I did when I wanted to study snakes and lizards, but I do. But I wouldn't consider myself a scientist. It's like I help other scientists with that. But I wanted to do that. But I gave up on it because I do it on my free time. So it's like I didn't need it to be my job. You have to be in the jungle all the time. Or good luck having it pay for your life. But you can't have a life if you're always just in the jungle. It's tough. You eventually have to stop that and find another way sustaining your income. But it's like, it's funny, like the people on was Decoding the Gurus, or I think it was, and one of them was like, oh yeah, like it's just ridiculous to think that like, Eric has like created this like narrative of like he's just alone in his basement and like he has figured out like, how to unite quantum mechanics and general relativity in his basement. It's like anyone who does figure that out will do it in their house, not at a university. Einstein created his stuff not at a university. He was literally like, slacking off as a patent clerk. Like that's the type of person that like will cause us to leap forward. It's not going to be someone with a PhD in physics if they're respected. Like if you have a PhD in physics or math and you're not very respected by like your peers and you're not very well liked, much more likely to have come up with the theory of everything. I did do this in Excel. Looks like all zeros. Oh, it's not all zeros at all. Look. Closer. It's not zeros. It's a braid of information. It's surrounded by zeros. Oh, these are zeros and this is zero. But you can see there is this row of number going through the zeros. And when you back up and you move it, because motion is required to contextualize things, you can see it's a spinning braided rope. It's amazing. It's literally a helix. The same thing happens with the Fibonacci sequence. There's no sequence of numbers that this doesn't occur. It happens in every sequence. Every sequence in which there's a change happening via a certain ratio, you will see this exact pattern. It doesn't matter what sequence it is. It means that this pattern is everywhere. And what it is it's that you are inside of a hop vibration, which is essentially like this. Fiber bundle. And we're inside this, and this is essentially the universe. And you are like one of these strings, and you're looking at the universe from inside the universe, and you're seeing this weird like twisted thing in the center that's like linking all the information that's flowing inside out and outside in at the same time. And so you're inside this thing looking at the center of it, and what you're seeing is a double helix. Chris, you're back. That's awesome. It's good to see you here. You kind of seeing you. You should join the Discord discussion tomorrow at 7. By the way, next week I think I'm going to try and start these earlier at like 6:30, because I think we'll get better. Like I think it'll be easier for people to watch. Like it's pretty late right now on the East Coast. It's like 11 where I'm at, but that means it's like 2 somewhere or 1. But yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to see your name. But yeah. Anyways, Amanda, you are more than welcome to join the Discord, and we can have all the discussions. like it's like I said, it's a very good group. As long as everybody's respectful, everybody can join, and we talk about everything. But you have to be like willing to listen to ideas that are different from anything you've ever heard. Some of them might be like might challenge your political ideas, might challenge your moral ideas, might challenge your biological and physical and mathematical ideas. But that's the point. Like, that's good. Just, examine what seems to make sense. If something doesn't make sense, don't believe it. But if something makes sense, then you don't have a choice. So, anyways, hit the like button. Subscribe. Please hit the bell notification. Something is happening and I'm being throttled on YouTube. And sucks, but whatever. I said this was coming. Subscribe at the bottom of the homepage on sentientsingularity.com for when I inevitably get kicked off. And follow me on Instagram, Theory of Every0ne, or Tyler Marshall Goldstein, both of them. I'm on Twitter as Tyler Marshall Goldstein. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is Tyler Goldstein on here, but I don't post to it very often anymore, but I used to. And then the channel got deleted and restarted, and I haven't really added to it since, so this is the main channel. But yeah, if you find this valuable, share it. I realize these are long. If you have a moment in this where you think it would make a good small clip, post the link with the timestamp into the Discord and into the general chat or something, and I'll eventually make a channel, if it's not already there, that is clip ideas, because there is a Theory of Every0ne clips channel. It's run by not me, and like, I'm sure that, like, I don't know, you can suggest an idea, and if they like it, maybe they'll put it up. So I try and stay out of like suggesting things because I want you guys to choose what you think is valuable. This is all like 3 hours of what I think is valuable. It's like, what is valuable of those 3 hours to you is important because it's an outside perspective. So it's always interesting to see what clips get chosen. They're not usually the ones I would pick, but that's good. That's not bad at all. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. So it's awesome. Anyways, yep, join the Discord, and if I see you there tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, then welcome. Peace.